Right now, somewhere in this video, there is a piece of wilderness gear you probably trust. Maybe you already own it. Maybe you are about to buy it. The problem is not that it looks cheap, because it does not. The problem is that it looks exactly like real trail-ready equipment while being built for something else entirely. 7 wilderness gear traps, a cold night at altitude, a water filter that fails in winter, a shelter that buckles under real wind load. Then 3 alternatives that actually earn the money, and one comes from a brand on this warning list. I'm Ranger Jack, 17 years outfitting clients for alpine and winter wilderness expeditions in the Rockies. No brand deals, no free product. The shelf in my shop tells you more than any product page. Number 7, tactical survival kit bundles, the ones sold on Amazon with the bright orange pouches and the word emergency printed on every side of the box. They move by the thousands. The reviews look convincing because most people who buy them never use them when conditions are actually serious. The ferro rod in most of these kits performs fine in your kitchen. Point it into a real crosswind at elevation, into wet tinder, in the kind of night where fire is not optional, and the consistency disappears. The rod is undersized. The striker is soft. The emergency blanket tears on first rough handling, not the second, the first. The compass is a magnetic disc, not a base plate model, and it gives you a direction without the context needed to act on it. Each component in these kits would cost less if purchased individually from manufacturers who actually engineer field tools. What you are paying for is the bundle, the packaging, and the feeling of being prepared. That feeling is not a wilderness tool. For day use at a front country park, some of this is fine. For actual wilderness conditions, almost none of it performs at the level the packaging implies. The box looks like survival gear. The contents survive an Amazon return window, not a real wilderness night, and the next one is more expensive, which makes the failure harder to defend. Number 6, generic sleeping bags with self-assigned temperature ratings. This is the category that concerns me most, not because these products look obviously wrong, but because they look exactly right. Professional packaging, an outdoorsy brand name, hundreds of reviews, and right there on the product page in confident type, rated to 10-degree rays. Here is what that rating actually means. A person inside that company decided on that number. That is the full extent of the process. There is a standardized testing protocol on the EN 13537 standard and its ISO successor that requires sleeping bags to be evaluated by certified labs at verifiable thermal thresholds across comfort, limit, and extreme temperature ranges. A bag carrying that certification can be held to that standard. A bag without it carries a number that nobody outside the company was required to test, verify, or stand behind. The insulation in these uncertified bags is typically a generic, low-density synthetic. Under real compression, body weight against the ground, repeated packing and unpacking over a season of use, it loses loft faster than quality fill. When loft collapses, warmth collapses. The shoulder baffle is often unsealed. The zipper draft collar is decorative. Cold air enters exactly where your body breathes. I had a client on a winter trip at 9,200 feet, clear night, not extreme conditions. She was carrying a bag rated to 10 degrees with no certification mark on the tag. Around 3 a.m., she was cold enough to pull every extra piece of insulation in her pack into the bag with her. The temperature that night was 18 degrees. The bag performed nowhere near its stated rating. That bag is on my shelf now. The original tag is still on it. You are trusting a number that nobody was required to test. That temperature number was decided in an office, not a cold chamber. The next one looks like serious backcountry gear. It is not. Number 5, hydration packs from lifestyle brands. Clean aesthetic, strong social media presence, outdoor adjacent branding, and a price that feels like a serious purchase. The reviews are strong because most buyers use these packs for short-maintained trails, gym sessions, and casual outdoor events. Put this pack under a multi-day wilderness load, and the problem is immediate. The hip belt is either absent or decorative. It wraps around the waist but does not transfer load because there is no internal frame connected to a functional load transfer system. The shoulder straps lack load lifter adjustability, the diagonal strap that allows you to pull weight off the upper back and drive it through the pelvis. Without that adjustment, without a structural hip belt, without a real internal frame, every pound stays on your shoulders. Over one day, that is uncomfortable. Over 3 days at elevation, it degrades your balance, your pace, and your decision-making on technical terrain. The pack swings on descent. The straps dig into the trapezius. The back panel does not conform to a loaded lumbar curve. And you paid a mid-range price that sits adjacent to genuinely technical alternatives with real frame systems built specifically for wilderness load transfer. It looks like a backcountry pack. It fits like a stylish bag. This next one is not a cheap brand, which makes the failure harder to accept. Number 4. Consumer technology GPS devices marketed for wilderness navigation. The problem here is structural, not specific to one company. But I want to be precise about what that means. If your navigation device comes from the same product lineup that also includes fitness trackers, heart rate monitors, and recreational trail apps, pay attention. Garmin, for example, makes respected recreational GPS units marketed alongside their fitness technology. They also make the InReach, which I will come back to shortly. And the difference between those two product categories tells you everything about this buying trap. Lithium-ion batteries contract in cold temperatures. This is chemistry, not a manufacturing defect. A device that delivers 8 hours of battery life in room temperature testing loses a significant portion of that capacity in sub-freezing conditions. Consumer GPS specifications typically do not disclose cold weather battery performance with precision. You will not find that limitation on the product page. You will find it above treeline. The second problem is interface. A touch screen that responds perfectly with bare fingers in a warm room does not respond with insulated gloves in alpine wind. At exactly the moment you need navigation data, or in weather, in reduced visibility when your hands are cold, the interface you are counting on stops responding. The third problem is communication. A consumer GPS shows you where you are. It does not relay your position to anyone else. There is no SOS signal, no connection to a rescue coordination center. You know your location. No one else does. In a genuine wilderness emergency, that gap is the only one that matters. Premium price tag. Consumer-grade engineering underneath. Your phone maps work fine in the parking lot. The backcountry does not care about your subscription plan. And the next one is a water problem, the kind that becomes critical when your filter stops working in winter. Number 3, consumer water filtration bottles designed for casual outdoor use. The squeeze and straw-style filters sold at every big box camping section. These work reliably for warm weather camping on developed trails. They are not designed for cold weather wilderness conditions. That fact is in the product documentation. It is not in the marketing. Most use hollow fiber filtration, a membrane with tiny pores that physically block pathogens as water passes through. At normal temperatures, this works. When the membrane freezes, those pores can crack. A cracked membrane does not filter, it passes. Unlike a filter that visibly fails, a freeze-damaged membrane can look completely intact while providing no protection at all. Most major manufacturers include cold weather warnings in their product documentation. Keep the filter from freezing. Replace it if freezing occurs. Those warnings are in the fine print, not the product listing. The listing shows the product in exactly the conditions it cannot reliably handle. Flow rate also degrades in near freezing water. The membrane pores constrict. What takes 30 seconds at room temperature takes considerably longer in cold water. In winter backcountry conditions, where hydration is already harder to maintain and every behavioral cue points toward drinking less, a slow or blocked filter is a real problem with real consequences. You carry a container that cannot clean the water you need most. A filter that freezes is not a filter. It is a plastic bottle with a blocked straw. The next brand makes genuinely excellent outerwear. That is exactly why buyers trust the sleeping bag. They should not. Number 2, entry-level sleeping bags from premium outdoor apparel brands. This is where brand loyalty becomes an expensive trap. And the brand is not the problem. The brand is genuinely good at something else. The trap is assuming that competence transfers across product lines at every price point. Here is how it works. A major outdoor brand builds real credibility in insulated jackets. Named insulation, published fill power, field performance that holds up. You buy the jacket. It works. You trust the brand. You walk to the sleeping bag section. Same logo, same design language. The price on the entry-line bag is accessible, not cheap enough to flag, not alarming. You assume the engineering follows. At the entry price point, it often does not. Entry-level sleeping bag lines from some of these brands use budget synthetic fill described on the product page in vague terms. Synthetic insulation or proprietary fill, without a fill weight, fill power equivalent, or certified temperature rating. The EN ISO testing process is not referenced. The temperature on the hang tag is self-assigned. The bag cut is often wider than technical performance requires, leaving more dead air volume than your body can efficiently heat. The draft collar construction is loose. The zipper baffle is thin. On a winter expedition, I ran for a group of 12 clients. 2 had sleeping bags from different recognizable outdoor apparel brands. Both were up in the middle of the night. Different logos, same problem. No EN ISO certification, vague fill descriptions, and thermal performance that did not match the rating on the tag. The parka is real. The sleeping bag borrows the name without borrowing the engineering. The final trap is the one most buyers actually defend, because they paid the most for it. Number 1, ultralight shelter systems from brands that entered the wilderness shelter market by borrowing credibility, built in a different outdoor category, apparel, footwear, packs, and applied that credibility to an engineering discipline with completely different demands. Ultralight shelter design is a legitimate pursuit. A properly engineered ultralight shelter achieves low weight through precision, thinner fabrics with higher hydrostatic head ratings, pole geometry that achieves structural rigidity with less material mass, factory-taped seams, load-rated guy-out points. The weight reduction comes from better engineering, not from less. In the category trap, ultralight means fewer materials with insufficient structural compensation. Pole diameter is reduced without a geometric adjustment to maintain rigidity under load. The result is a shelter that holds up in benign conditions and deforms under sustained alpine wind. Seams on some of these designs are coated rather than factory taped. A coated seam resists light moisture. Sustained wind-driven rain at pressure finds the gaps. Guy-out webbing at stress points is underspecified for lateral load. The pitch geometry concentrates wind stress on individual poles rather than distributing it through a redundant structure. Undersized poles flex. Flexing poles under sustained load fail. These are not cheap shelters. They compete in price with proven four-season designs that publish pole specifications, seam construction methods, and hydrostatic head ratings, designs with decades of documented alpine use. On a winter expedition I was leading, one tent in the group buckled under wind that was sustained but not exceptional. Not a storm, just real alpine conditions for a real duration. That tent is on my shelf now. Ultralight should mean precision engineering, not just less material. Those are the 7 traps. Here is what real wilderness engineering actually looks like. 3 products where the specifications back up the price. The Garmin InReach Mini 2. I mentioned Garmin in the navigation warning, and I want to be precise about why. The recreational GPS units in their consumer lineup share the battery, interface, and communication limitations I described, designed for casual use cases, not wilderness safety emergencies. The InReach is a completely different engineering category from the same company. This is not a map device. It is a satellite communicator built for one specific job. It operates via the Iridium satellite network, meaning it functions anywhere on Earth without cellular coverage. It sends and receives two-way messages via satellite. It transmits your GPS coordinates. In a genuine emergency, it sends an SOS signal with your location directly to a professional rescue coordination center, not to a personal contact who then has to find the right service, directly to the infrastructure that responds. The device is engineered for field conditions. Battery performance in cold weather is a design consideration, not an afterthought. The interface does not require a touchscreen. The consumer GPS from this list has a handwritten tag on my graveyard shelf. The InReach does not, but after 17 years of equipping clients for alpine and winter wilderness expeditions, that distinction is the most useful data point I have. I have no commercial relationship with Garmin. I pay full price, same as anyone else. That is the only reason I can say this without caveat. There is a subscription cost for satellite service. That cost is real and recurring. Against the alternative, a wilderness emergency with no way to signal your location to a rescue service, it is not debatable. Second, specialty sleeping bags and quilts from small batch technical makers. Two worth examining seriously: enlightened equipment and katabatic gear. What these brands do that mass market manufacturers often do not. They publish the specifications. Insulation type is named. Fill power is disclosed. Temperature ratings reference third-party testing rather than internal self-assignment. Draft collar design, baffle geometry, shell fabric. Each is described in terms of thermal performance logic, not marketing language. The cut options are designed around how heat is actually lost during sleep. The price on many of these products is comparable to or lower than entry-level bags from the major apparel brands. The difference is not price. It is what you can verify before committing to a temperature rating. With transparent specifications, you can evaluate the construction against the performance claim. Without them, you're trusting a number no one was required to test. The graveyard shelf in my shop does not have a product from either of these makers. After 17 years, that is the most credible statement I can make. Confirm current specifications and certification status on their product pages before purchasing. Specifications change between model years. But the commitment to transparency here is different from anything in the mass market category. Third, four-season shelters from MSR and Black Diamond, the Remote 2 and the Highlight, address the engineering failures in the shelter trap directly. The pole geometry on these designs distributes wind load across the full pole system rather than concentrating it at individual points. Geodesic and semi-geodesic structures achieve this through their crossing architecture. Seams are factory taped, not coated. That distinction matters when rain is wind-driven and sustained. The fabrics carry published hydrostatic head ratings. The guy out points are load-rated. These are not the lightest options in their weight class. They're the most structurally honest. When wind reaches 40 miles per hour at altitude in the middle of the night, not an unusual condition in alpine terrain, pole geometry is the only variable that matters. These designs have that geometry. The price is premium. The engineering documentation behind it is real. Confirm current specifications and seam construction details on the manufacturer pages for your specific model year before buying. Before you commit to any wilderness gear purchase, run through this. Sleeping bags. Is the temperature rating in ISO certified by a third-party lab or self-assigned? Is the insulation named? Is fill power or fill weight disclosed? Tents and shelters. Are the seams factory taped or coated? What is the published hydrostatic head rating? What are the pole material and diameter? Does the geometric design distribute wind load or concentrate it? Navigation and communication. Does the device function without cellular coverage? Can it send a location signal to a professional rescue coordination center? What is the cold weather battery performance? Can it be operated with gloves? Water filtration. Is there cold weather documentation from the manufacturer? What is the minimum safe operating temperature for the filter element? Survival and emergency kits. Can each component be individually evaluated against a real field use standard, or is the kit a packaged unknown? And the question that covers all of it: Does the brand publish specific materials, certifications, named insulation, hydrostatic ratings, and cold weather performance data? Or does the product page rely on words like rugged, adventure-ready, trail-tested, and all-terrain, without a single verifiable specification behind them? Outdoor conditions do not care about logos. They care whether the gear performs. Drop a comment with what you are carrying right now. The brand, the product, how many trips or miles you have on it, and what happened when conditions actually got real. Tell me what is still in your pack that belongs on a graveyard shelf. Tell me what brand you trusted and what it cost you when you found out you should not have. Tell me what you want tested next. Subscribe if you want the next list before you spend money on something that does not deserve it. That comment section is where the next video comes from.